Morning, this is Mornings with Michael for information and educational purposes only. Hope everybody's having a good Thursday. We're going to get to the market in a second. First, let's look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is in a range. It had moved up to above 61,000 and retracing. So that is the story there. And our word of the day is vertiginous. Vertiginous. And causing vertigo, especially by extremely high or steep heights. So that is our word of the day. Go to our S&P 500 heat map. It was a down day on the NASDAQ. It tried to move higher and then sold off hard. This was an earlier look. I'll refresh the screen. Here we go. Here's our screen. Everything turned red in tech. NVIDIA was up close to 1%, and then it turned and at one point was over 4% down for the day. All the other semiconductor stocks were sold off as well. Google was down, Meta is down, Amazon is down, and Tesla was down over 5%. Energy did bounce back a little bit here. Have a mixed bag in the rest of the market, so that is the story there. Let us go to our little bit of a commercial. If you've spent your lifetime building up your investment, you may want to look at one of these as it beats index investing by about 5%. And when the market goes down like today, it does not go down. It only goes up when the market goes up, and it keeps going up the stairs. And there are bonuses available anywhere from 10 to 45%. If you'd like to learn more about that, feel free to reach out to me. And here we are over at the charts. CAVA Mediterranean Grill beat their earnings estimates. It closed at 101, and it's popping a little over 6% today. After hours, that is. And we got a little bounce in the dollar. Silver sold off on the bounce of the dollar. Gold sold off as well, gap down to the 10-day moving average. Copper fell to the 20-day. And take a look at uranium. Uranium had a big sell-off down to its 10-day as well. So that is a story there. Let us take a look at the bond yields. Bond yields are bouncing up over 2% today. That's going to put pressure on the small capitalization stocks. The 20-year is up 1.92, gets back up over 3%. And I believe the VIX is bouncing. And the VIX got up to 1755. Our target was over 20. So we'll see if it gets there next week. We'll keep an eye on it. S&P 500 is down about 0.8%. The equal weight on the S&P is down about 2.8%. NASDAQ was really hit hard today, down 1.6%, fell to its 50-day moving average, got a tiny little bounce after hours. The IWM falls 0.9%, and the Dow Jones is off 0.37% of the bull-bear spread of American Association of Individual Investors. Weekly survey was 27.9 versus 13.6. Last week, bulls rise to 51.6. So that maybe that's why it's selling off. Every time the bulls rise, there tend to be a sell-off. Neutrals fall to 24.7. from 28.6, and bears fall to 23.7 from 28.9. Bank of Korea leaves key interest rates unchanged at 3.5% for the 13th consecutive meeting. Japan's services PMI rose 50 to 54 in August from 53.7, driven by growth in new businesses. Purchasing Managers Index and Australia's manufacturer PMI rose to 48.7 from 47.5. On to our sector news breakdown. Advanced Auto Parts announced that it was entering into a definitive agreement to sell Worldpac. I believe they're selling that to Carlyle Group. And they gapped down big time on the earnings, down 43%. Take a look at Carlyle Group on this buyout. Not much happening there. On to BJ's Wholesale. Q2 adjusted EPS $1.09 versus estimate of $1. People are looking for more, and it falls 6.8%. Estee Lauder's upgraded to overweight from neutral at Piper Sandler and raised target to 114 from 95. Urban Outfitters EPS $1.24 versus $1, and they're falling close to 10% on that news. Canadian Solar cuts full year 24 forecasts 6.5 billion from 7.3 billion, and it falls 15% on that news. Nordson Q3 EPS $2.41 versus $2.33, and it is clearing the 200-day moving average. It moves up 3.3%. Unifi Q4 adjusted EPS 22-cent loss versus 23-cent loss. Wow, look at that move up. 17% on just a 1 cent beat. Earnings increased 44%. So good for Unifi. On to financials. TD Bank swung to a quarterly loss after setting aside Canadian 3.57 billion Canadian dollars for fines related to U.S. regulatory probes into anti-money laundering program. So that is off a little over 2%, and set aside 2.6 billion for fines for weakness in its anti-money laundering practices. Plans the sale of 40.5 million shares of common stock in Charles Schwab, reducing its ownership interest in the wealth management company to about 10% from more than 12%. Take a look at Schwab. Fell, but they fought back towards the end to stay at their 10-day moving average. On to healthcare. Agilent Technologies. EPS $1.32 versus estimate of $1.26, up 0.16%. And finally, we move on to technology, media, and telecom. On to Alibaba. They're down 0.68%. Alibaba and Tencent are betting billions in developing the country's open AI challenges, the Wall Street Journal reported. Take a look at Tencent. My news article has disappeared for a moment. This is going to pause for a second, pull that back up. We are back, And with the bad news of Snowflake is coming up shortly, let's take a look at Tencent. Tencent holding pretty strong, pretty flat. We'll move on that news on AI. Snowflake Q2 EPS 18 cents versus 16 cents, and it gets pulverized by almost 15% on that news. Synopsys Q3 EPS $3.43 versus consensus of $3.28. Tried to move higher and then sold off with the rest of the market of about 3%. Wolfspeed Q4 EPS 89-cent loss versus 85-cent loss, and it's off 5% on that news. Zoom had a good day. Zoom Video Q2 EPS $1.39, top consensus of $1.21. It raced ahead about 13%. Good for Zoom. Zuora Incorporated raising both revenue outlook and non-GAAP operating income ranges. And they tried to move higher and got sold off with the market off 0.12%. And finally, Paramount is in the news with Edgar Bronfman sweetened his offer from Sherry Redstone's media empire, submitting a revised bid of $6 billion for the national amusements and minority stake in Paramount, according to the Wall Street Journal. And that is all we have for today in the news. Let's go take a look at what we did. Or stop. Hit GE on that downturn. Berkshire Hathaway, or actually Birkenstock Holding, hit our stop as well. Sold out of half of NVIDIA. The big sell-off. Their earnings are next week. Just going to pull up my screen so I can take a look. Powell. We took off the long or the short on Powell, and then of course it sold off a little bit after that. We're still up a little over $1,000 on the option. We'll see if that propels us to buy the stock, which we like to do. App sold off today. Like a lot of issues, we're nervous about the Powell speech tomorrow, so we'll see how that all turns things. Is off 2%. We're still in OS, tried to move higher and sold off like the rest of the market. We put on some options on Sentinel-1. Their earnings are next week. We'll see if that works out for our benefit. Bull tried to move higher and then sold off like the rest of the market, off 1.25%. We put a spread trade on FTAI Aviation. We'll see if that works out. Spread is 120, 125. Was working until the market sold off later in the day. PayPal had been bouncing around, was positive, was negative, and it ended pretty flat. It was up just fractionally. We have GE GEV, Vernova, added another 100 shares, and ACGL. We added another 100 shares to this one as well today as it continues to move up in the pivot area. And after hours, we added 500 more shares, and we're going to take off the short that which we had at 109. Just think this is going to continue to go. And this broke out 98.79 was a buy point on the pivot on CAVA Group, and they just continue to surpass all their estimates as they continue to deliver. The former head of Panera Bread. So that's where we are. Hope everybody has a great day. This has been Mornings with Michael for information and educational purposes only. Go out there and continue to exceed your expectations and keep beating your goals and your activities.